I start playing. one of my tunes in the window there. I mean, on the piano.
Wow. Ah. Whoa! Wow!
Damn.
Shit.
It was hot too. Oh.
Really?
Oh. Super hot in there. Yeah, Benny.
Woo!
That's getting after it.
Wow.
Ah,
God. I couldn't stop. I'm sorry.
no,
12
that's all
minutes.
right.
I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah. I was just thinking back. I'm glad I took my vitamins that day. I had a good breakfast. I had a good breakfast. It was Jazz Baltica in the north of Germany, and did a lot of nice events there. Martin Wind, the bassist, good,
Yeah.
do a lot of things together, colleague and dear friend, and he's from that region. He's from Flensburg, which is in the north, a little bit north of Hamburg. I'm going to be in Hamburg there next year, actually. So
Oh, cool. I've heard his name. And the pianist?
that's Benny Green.
Oh, that was Benny Green. I didn't recognize him.
Yeah,
God.
and
I
then
haven't heard him for a while, apparently.
yeah, and then
Good.
E.J. Strickland and of course Chris Potter, and
E.J.
that yeah,
Strickland.
yeah, and that's become that particular YouTube video has become kind of a thing over the years. I mean, because a lot of it's because of obviously Chris Potter's great playing on it, but everybody throws down. That's why I always say the saxophone players. I mean, Chris and I have talked about it. Put Chris a solo, but man, EJ throws down too. So we have fun.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty, pretty much. I did I still wish I had that shirt. I love that shirt. A long time ago, but it was does it say what year that was, Cathy?
Yeah, let me go look. It says,
2000?
well, I mean, I don't know if it was posted or you did it in August of 2017.
No, that's
Oh,
when it was probably posted.
2010.
That's when that was, 2010. Oh, interesting. So yeah, it was a really, really warm European summer, and because I'd been over there doing other things too, and then and it was really hot in that performance barn on those grounds. That was really fun. I think that's the same year we were there, and Martin and I played a set with in a smaller barn with Don Friedman and Hank Jones together. That was great.
Wow.
Yeah. And then those were always nice. And I might have played there with Lee Konitz that year. I mean, they're kind of what you did is you just did a lot of things while you were there.
Yeah.
But it's always fun to be there and hang out
yeah.
And that's a fun one. So yeah, I'll be up that way next August at a workshop, and then some concerts around there with a workshop that it's in Hamburg with Martin and that Not Cohen is hosting with Donnie McCaslin and myself, and I'm not sure who else is doing it, and Martin. So it'll be good.
Cool, man.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, as those of you who've shown up know, this is Matt Wilson, extremely versatile and well-respected drummer, as you can see why. And what I personally like, I mean, I guess other listeners do this too, but when I'm listening to like the piano solo, I'm noticing what you're doing. And that's turning me on, because it's it's not accompanying, right? It's, I don't know what the name for it is, but uh, it's just playing together and, weaving the whole thing together, serving the music. But it's you're just playing so great. I just loved hearing you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I've been very fortunate and it's a gift, to have had these opportunities to play with that level of,
Yeah.
of artistry and that level of commitment and joy too. I mean, that that doesn't that's a that's a big part of it, is that the countenance that all those musicians create. And so, it's nothing like jumping in the pool and going for it. So one of my favorite things to say right before you ever go out on stage is, all right, let's go out and make jazz history. I say it almost every night, and so, because you never know. That's what we're doing. I mean, that music's never going to be the same, whether or not we're making monumental, whatever. But I treat the nights like that. And I had a great weekend last weekend of music, and I'm looking forward to some event I'm doing tomorrow. And then, the next couple of weeks is really busy and in and out around town, which is kind of back to way, prior
Yeah.
to the pandemic for me a little bit, which is fun too, but now I kind of enjoy both. I really enjoy being extremely busy and active in everything with teaching and everything, and then playing, and then not, so it's kind of
Yeah.
nice to be like, today I'm off, today I'm home, and I cook short ribs and I've got those going, and so
Yeah,
I
man.
enjoy that too. I mean, it's been nice to enjoy to be around a little bit and not be gone. When my kid, this is the most, it was actually nice for me. I have 4 children. My
Oh,
daughter's 24, and I have triplet sons who are 21.
oh,
And
wow.
and yeah, and so they were all home during the pandemic, and we had, and then my girlfriend and her daughter live about 4 minutes this way. She's in college, the same age as my sons, and we would have these dinners, almost pretty much every night, because of what we had to do. So, and we were our own little, commune of people. So it was good for me. I mean, I think I've created a deeper relationships. I've been very close to them anyway, because we've gone through a lot together with their mom passing and such. But I mean, yeah, it was actually cool. So I like having them. I like, it's nice to have those, that, because I'm gone all the time. So now is being around them that much we drove each other a little nuts, but not too bad actually. It's been good.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about that. Last night I was the bass player I used. I don't know if you know Ahmet Turkmenoglu.
I know the name. Yeah, I know the name.
He's a wonderful, wonderful player.
Yeah, yeah,
You should have a gig with him sometime.
yeah. I would
But
definitely like to.
he's just adorable, and he is very busy. People want to use him a lot because he's so great.
Mhm.
And last night he was saying, actually, I'm just kind of occasionally I'm just going, no, I don't think I want to do a gig. It's like I want to just be home. It feels good. It really shifted us. It was kind of a miracle,
Yeah, I
in a
mean,
weird way.
yeah, and I was fortunate, and again, I'm blessed to feel to have the teaching that I have. So did a
Yeah.
lot of that, and so I still stayed active at the schools, and it was online, but still great, another way of connecting and creating relationships with students also. So now
Yeah.
I use this as an additional platform, which is nice. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, it's but I like being around the community and the of players, and that's what's been really great, to run into a bunch of people recently that I had not seen, and
And you're
so
all
that's
set to
cool.
play again. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, let's
yeah,
play, right?
yeah. Let's go. Yeah, and I mean, I've always been pretty enthusiastic about this, but it's really great to have it be back. The other thing about maybe Kathy too is that I was talking to a student about this the other day. There was that fear, that we would never have it back, in
Yeah.
some sort of way. And so I think that even through these different, I was pretty busy last summer, and then there's some this not this summer, summer of
Summer
21,
before,
and
yeah.
then when that other variant thing came in, it kind of got shifted everything, and then then in this around the late fall I was busy, and then into December with Christmas Trio, we missed, and I was in Europe and in November, and we just as we were getting, like, we got to Munich, and that's when it started to get weird in Bavaria, and
Wow.
then we went here, and then it was starting to get weird, and then we got to London, and that's when it was, and
Oh
then I was
God.
supposed to go to Holland right after that. I got home for Thanksgiving, I was supposed to go to Holland, and that's when they shut down,
Oh,
from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. I was like, go. I mean,
yeah.
what? I mean, so then we did Christmas Trio tour, and Chicago, the Midwest was getting weird. I mean, just as the days went on, and actually I stayed an extra day in Chicago at the end of our tour, and played a gig with someone I made a record for, and the saxophone player, Leonard Simpson, a very fine young alto player, was with Jamie Breivik and John Tate. John Tate's a bass player originally from my area, the Illinois where I'm from, and Jamie's a trumpet player in Milwaukee. So we played a concert in New York for that, or in Chicago for that, excuse me. And Leonard he didn't know that night, but he tested positive the next day. And those are the times, when you were like, oh wow. And so I didn't get it then, and then I got through the spring and everything like that, and this summer, and I played a wedding for a friend of mine a few weeks ago with basically the Christmas Trio, and I got it. So I never, so around teaching, around students flying, all that.
That isn't that weird? That's like me. I got two shots. I'm not really a vaccine shot kind of a girl. So I got two shots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take some more coffee. My lovely husband.
Good.
And and you know, I go out hugging people. I'm not. I stayed home, but then I went out when I could, and the mask on, off, whatever. I just hug people, and I didn't get it. And about 2 months ago, I think I went to a gig in a little place near here, and I think that's where I got it. And my husband and I got it finally after
Yeah.
2.5 years.
What?
And now this is like a little we had it about 2 months ago, and then our grandchildren came over, and the next day my husband had a cough and sniffles, and then I was like, I never catch that.
Yeah.
Well, I caught it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you never. I mean, unfortunately,
Improvisation, man.
yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, it there were some places, there were some people I wanted to see,
Yeah, yeah,
and play, but I had kind of heavy weeks, like in
yeah,
festival things I had a Honey and Salt thing at the Saratoga Festival with a record date that week, and I thought, if I get this and I can't do these, really, it
yeah,
not only spiritually knocks into things, but it
yeah,
even financially, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to be cool. And in the same way, around some other times that I had, this new band, cooperative trio, did the Wichita Festival called Leap Day Trio with Jeff Letter and Mimi Jones. And I wanted to do that week, especially because I hadn't been back to Wichita for a while. So I stayed cool. I stayed pretty, clear about that. And then the 40th anniversary of a festival in my hometown, I put a band, all-star band together for that. And I didn't want to miss. So I was being really, really careful,
yeah, yeah.
ultra careful before those times. But but then I go, and even Jeff said this wedding, it was downstairs like a theater, they're theater people, this friend of mine. So he was like, this is a super spreader. I'm like, we'll be cool. Then, and I had even I had to have a PCR test to go back to the new school to start, which I started on that Monday. And then that Monday, that during the day, I wasn't, that later afternoon, I was on the way home on the train. I was like, I don't feel that good. And then I knew, like, okay, this has got to be what it is. So. But I got over it pretty fast. I was fine by the weekend,
Yeah. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
I have a few people saying hi. One
Hi.
is from Seattle. You probably know her. It's Joyce Glasgow.
Oh yeah, Joyce, how you doing?
And there's other people on, and Roland is here, and Dan is here, and Priscilla, and and Taylor Hatch, who
Oh,
is. Do you know Taylor?
know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a guitar player. He's at UNT, and his friend Julian Archer studied with you in San
Oh
Francisco.
yeah. That's maybe how I've heard the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has great questions. He mostly
Sure.
about teaching questions, you know.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna like scope them out. Let's see. Well, first I'm gonna start with the last question, Taylor. Sometimes teachers notice when a student is impatient about something in lessons or practice. When you encounter a student that has a problem mastering a concept, how do you remind them to be patient? And I'm just turning on my fan, so you can start talking anytime.
Uh, well, Taylor, I remind them that we're basically all impatient. We all want, but sometimes I think one of the things that sometimes how I introduce some concepts for this, where I want them to have the patience, is to sort of border it with it being goalless practicing. So in other
Goal.
words, goalless. So I mean, it has a purpose. I mean, everything we want to do has a purpose.
Yeah,
But it's not like, oh, you've got to get this, or this is the only way that.
yeah,
And sometimes when we take away those barriers of like, oh, I've got to do this, or to play with whom or whatever. If we just patient and welcome the experience and be patient with it, then I think they'll see. And I also there's a TED talk that I really like about practicing. It's about a little less than 4 minutes long, and
yeah.
I send it to people. I send it to students, and I have them watch it, and then a few times actually, and then really I had my San Francisco students do this recently, write a paragraph about what they felt from it. And a lot of that is practicing in smaller increments where you're really mindful many times a day, rather than the 4 hours at a stretch. So I think it's really good to revisit things and do it short amounts of times when you're very mindful of it, and you
I
might assimilate it a little bit easier.
I really like the goalless kind of point of view because I think that's what really stresses people out, you know,
Yeah,
and they the welcoming of the problem. It's like I mean, somebody said there's winning and there's learning. It's not
yeah,
winning and
yeah,
losing. So the thing that's happening is fine. It's welcoming and it's part of the growth, right? It's
yeah,
so. I mean, what we do is in the moment and its growth. We're so fortunate to have it, to grow through life. But we can do it right here, right now, and the bad is part of it and everything. But if we can just enjoy the whole thing.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times too, when students get to a certain aspect of things, they 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 they've gotten certain things easier and other things take on. I mean, it's still working.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all. And you preface it by saying, when you get it figured out, let me know, because I'm still trying to figure out how not to be impatient. And I get it from doing other things. So you cooking, for example,
Yeah.
or building something, or
Yeah.
trying, putting together something. You put yourself in those same challenges of wanting to get some sort of other skill together, and you have to learn to be patient with it, even though you're patient with what you do, supposedly, right? So I think, but I also believe that I've been doing better as a teacher by not feeling the need to have to pile. I mean, to not as pile as much stuff on. Give them stuff to do,
Yeah.
but not pile on. Allow them time to discover things and have
Absorb.
those
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't feel the need I have to come up with something new every week. It's not like an entertainment thing. Like, oh, it's my lesson. You got to come up with something.
Yeah.
Maybe we should
Yeah.
work on the same things for a while. And
Yeah.
there's different people learn different things. Some people are really effective practitioners. You can say, work on this, come back. And then others, it's better actually to spend more time with them getting something together. Dan Tepfer, the great pianist, I'm sure you
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
know. Yeah, he told me a story. He took a lesson with a really great conguero in Cuba, and he's playing this thing, and and the guy didn't. This gentleman didn't show him something and send him home and practice. He said, "Okay, no, you don't quite have it, Dan. Here's this. Keep practicing. Listen, go. I'm going across the street. So I go across the cafe, street to cafe, have a coffee, cake, whatever. Come back. Let me hear it, Dan. Dan, you're getting there, but not quite. Let me show it to you. Do it again. Okay. Go back over, maybe have a drink, cigar, then have lunch. And then by the end of the day, he came back and said, yeah, you have it. Come back tomorrow. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes some people, certain things that we do, it's better to get it than to come to for me to send them home where they're kind of maybe not going to have that flow. And I don't think anything's right or wrong, but not learn it maybe the most effective way. So, I think that's something. It's really fun to spend some longer time periods with folks sometimes, or just take one subject and cover it,
Yeah, and that's why it's great to be or to have an empathetic teacher, because they get, like, I feel like I get behind my student's head almost, like I get over here, they're blah 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 blah, and I'm kind of looking here and going, oh, I see how they're looking at it. Let me enter there. And you're right, sometimes it's just like the smallest little thing, and when you see they go, oh, actually I remember reading, okay, so there's, gosh, I don't know if I'm going to remember all the names. There's a family of actors. The father was like a producer, director, old. He's probably dead now. And then the woman was, I think she played in the Munsters movie. What's her name? Angela.
Angelica Houston.
Yes. Okay. So that family.
Adam's family. Yeah.
But I mean, the Houston family.
John Houston.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Angela had written that her father would tell them something and then wait to see them go, oh, and then shut up. He wouldn't say anything else. That was it. So that impressed me. It was like, oh yeah, man, because we're all such individuals. We learn differently. We need something different. We're built differently. We have different histories. So, yeah, that's the truth. This may be the truth, but it's how each one of us absorbs it, and uses it.
Mm-hmm. Everybody. I always preface everything. I'm not there to change what they do. I'm just there to offer more ways, that they can serve the song, especially the song, as many different ways and open up the possibilities. And sometimes things are, there's easy things to fix. Some people's find posture thing, it could be movement things. Other things are bigger picture. And then I've learned when to introduce some things and when not to, when to, but what I enjoy about it is it's a process. It's enjoying the process. And I really, I think the pandemic helped me too, helped me get more organized a little bit with materials and such too, so that, not that I change that stuff all around too all the time, but I think that I look forward to it. Every student that I have, I really love ensembles. I really love to get to hear the folks play the music. But in the case of a drum lesson too, it's really nice to always reference as much recordings, as much anthropology of the music as possible. Now we have the plethora of videos and all the stuff that are still available, and it's great. So I think, and going to see people live. Now that's back with and witnessing, great artistry in person and having them realize that. So yeah, it's fun. I'm still, I'm learning this stuff all, and I always ask my students too, like at the end of the years or into terms, like, okay, what can I do to help improve it? And some of that was sort of reference material in the past, so that's why I've kind of compiled that stuff. And also I got tired of writing it down, so we can really focus on things. I'll just say, they take it in, and I also got tired of seeing the stuff on the floor. I go up to a college, and then the stuff that I've written down, I see it there, whether or not they have it in their phone or in their computer. Now at least I know they have it preserved, and it's, I'm not, that's just small. It's kind of like,
I know that feeling too. Yeah.
You do all this and you
give somebody something that's really like precious, and then they're like, oh yeah, okay.
But they're all very they're very gracious young people. So
Yes.
I'm very happy about that. And it's nice that for me, it's nice to also have other people other than, I mean, if I just taught private drum lessons, I'd probably go insane. But ensembles, having other instrumentalists study with me, bass
Ensembles.
players,
Yeah, I think
bass.
ensembles are cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I want to ask you something. I'm not sure of the question. I mean, Taylor has a bunch of more questions, and I'm stealing a little bit from what he's saying. But I mean, for me, when I think about my observations of drums over the years, because I started singing jazz when I was little,
Yeah, yeah.
and so and then when I became aware, I mean, there were things that you as you were growing up, you became aware of, like, good time, and then notes started coming in, and then harmonies. But then over the years, as I grew older, I started being more attracted to drummers who were creative, and I remember when I first started going to Japan in like the 80s. At that time, the drummers were doing stuff like play great for 4 bars and then totally change to something else great for 4 bars and totally change again. They didn't have this concept, of
Yeah,
connecting. Now they do.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but so how you play is is I'll say the style that I really love. It's creative. Taylor did talk about a conversation. And when you're teaching, is that, obviously you teach the basics, right?
Mhm.
But is your perspective of that kind of creating and playing together, like what we just saw with you guys, is that a particular subject, or like kind of like a subject that you give to your students, or it's just if the student is at that level that they need it or they can use it, and you see, then you talk about it. Is this something like that you, as a drum teacher, would you talk about this kind of creativity that's part of the intricate, um, you know, material that weaves
Yeah,
together all of the music?
sure, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's a rite of passage. It's not like, okay, you get this down, and then some people have that. Okay, if I work on this, I do the international sign for saxophone. If I work on this, and then all of a sudden the creativity or imagination is going to be there. But I think we have to cultivate that all of the time, also.
Yeah.
So I tell students to seek out folks that can. To me, we hope that that a private teacher, your instrument, provides you with physical guidance of the instrument, because every instrument has physical demands that those people can observe and see. You've drum, Lori Frink, for example, she was a great guru of trumpet teacher. Bobby Shue, a lot of those kind of folks. Mario Guarneri, who was up in the Bay Area that we have at the school. There's a lot of other folks like that too. There's some people, Madame Shaloff, the great Sarah Shaloff's mother, was a great pianist, teacher, and I don't think she probably didn't give what style of music you played or whatever you were about, just to help you play the piano. And so I think if you want to find somebody that can help you physically, and certain times in your life you maybe need that more, and then other times you want to seek out people, and it may be the same person. If you're fortunate, I try to be the same person if I can. I mean, it's not always. But it also helps people cultivate their imagination. So if you so sometimes those people can be people that you just meet, that, oh, listen to this, try this out, let's try this, or I was talking about this with a student the other day about the great Tony Williams, and how Sam Rivers was Alan Dawson helped him a lot, but he listened to music, and then Sam Rivers guided him, and they'd go play duos in front of paintings at art museums and stuff like that. So he had his mind, his whole aura of artistry was cultivated. wasn't like he just played the drums. You know what
Yes.
I mean? So, you want to stimulate these things. And so that's why it's important for them to study, to welcome other, ways of people coming up with things. I've always been marveled by just imagination that people have, whether it's music or whether it's the way someone cooks and can plate a dish, or whether someone can fix something. I mean, there's people that can just, I love that with somebody like, oh yeah, I can figure that out. And they'll come back with some way that they figured it out. A mechanic is incredibly imaginative, right? Or whomever, a plumber or carpenters, obviously. So, they just sit down and, they figure things out. So I think if we want to, yeah, because imagination is still really important. And some people are more naturally wired to be that way. Some people really love the craft. Some people like it all. And but I like people. Always been intrigued by people that have found their own ways, and they find those ways, I believe, through their strengths and their limitations.
Yeah.
Because you have to figure out what to do. Miles followed Charlie Park, Dizzy in Charlie Parker's band, right? And so it didn't play the same. Had to figure out a way to play those songs, right? And the other day there was I sent this out to my students, that Chick Corea's estate sends out like emails a week. One of them was this poem the other day about find techniques that serve your creativity, create techniques that serve your artistry. So people have to find their ways of doing things. So when you look at we know what is for the most part.
Yeah.
It's the how. So, we hear Tootie Heath's cymbal melody. We hear Billy Higgins' cymbal melody. We hear Charlie Carrington's cymbal melody. We hear Allison Miller. I mean, we know the what is not basically, but is really the same. And then the how, though, how they do it physically, how they hear it, how they offer it. And that's what I want them to know, is that they're important. They have a voice, and they can, and it's astonishing, what can emerge from welcoming it that way, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's, you just keep steering them, and you have them, if you I'm always checking, trying to discover new things and try things all the time. I was inspired by people like that as a kid. I was around Louis Bellson was from West Central Illinois, Moline, Quad City area, and I'm from a little bit further. About 50 miles
excuse
south
me.
of there.
By the way, Les DeMerle says hi.
Oh yeah, Lester Merle, great.
I talked to him Monday.
Oh yeah, he's great. And
Speaking of Louis Bellson.
Yeah. And he was saying, even back then, oh yeah, I keep up. I keep up what I hear what Chick is doing. Here's a man, that had things that was always open. Look at Coleman Hawkins. Look at look at Cannonball Adderley. Look at all these people that did a long. And there's also people that we sometimes don't know that they did other things within this worlds too. Shelley Mann was great at that, right? I mean, speaking of a great spirit of LA, and then my dear friend John Clayton, who LA stalwart and mentor. He's a mentor of mine, along with Jeff Hamilton and Joe LaBarbera, all these LA cats. But John talks about let's stop practicing and let's start performing. So if you give them I try to change everything from exercise now to performance activities. I really want them to perform. We have plenty of players. But we need people that perform and reach people. So you have to cultivate that too. There's just people that when they walk out there, you go, that's what my dad and my parents were so cool about. They didn't, I don't know if they knew if it was AABA or the blues or if it was free, but they could sense, they had a great sense of honesty. They could hear music and go, oh, I like this. And they could sense when, they also like to observe the players. I was like, oh yeah, look how he takes the horn out of the case. So those things all matter, right? How you think of somebody like the great Joe Lovano, just how he walks into a room. Or when you see Roy Haynes walk out there, I mean, how do you welcome, how do you welcome folks? How do you include them? How do you do the offering? How do you initiate the offering and receiving of a performance. So people that are just masterful at it. You want to go because you want to be there around them. Christian Mcbride. I mean, great example of that. I mean, we could list people all day, that really, go. And as much as I think, oh yeah, it's great to play for folks where they're, sometimes you get these questions, like educated audiences where they, no, I don't know, I don't care if they know anything about this. Matter of fact, sometimes them not knowing anything about it, they're probably a little more open about it because, and
they're feeling it. Yeah.
They're feeling it. Yeah, they're feeling it. They want to feel something. So how do we get that across? At the same time. But it's sound does it, and details of sound. People know details of sound. People can tell. And with the drums, the drums are so visual to people, and everybody knows what the drum set is. Basically, I'm not sure that if we surveyed people on the street right now, they know the difference between a trumpet and a trombone, or a trumpet and a cornet, nonetheless trumpet and trombone, or a string bass and a violin. It's we don't have those, but everybody pretty much know the drums, right? So they can see it, and how they relate to it is maybe a little bit more multi-generational and more cultural all the time. So, but
yeah, that's so true. Like my husband is an example of that. He's not a jazz person. I bought him a drum set. We've been married about 20 years. I bought him a drum set early on because he had played when he was a kid, and I thought this is a way that he could maybe get into jazz more, right? And he didn't end up playing a lot because his hands hurt, but I could tell that he started getting more interested. Like for instance, Mark Ferber, he thought was awesome. And I thought, oh, this is a good sign, but through the drums. So when I take him to see people, I have an idea of who he's going to really like. He likes the creative, like you said, honest, creative drumming. That's what he relates to. He has a huge record collection, but it's mostly old rock and roll and blues, which of course is great too, but so that's just to prove your point. And last night was a good example for me. I'm sick, and I went to sing, and I was missing this middle kind of range, and I sang a Sting song called "Consider Me Gone," which is kind of a groove. Yeah, right. And so to get through this area, not only was I kind of moving around, but I also kind of had this attitude, because I couldn't really sing in that area. And the people applauded so much at the end. And I was like, oh my God, because I mean, I wasn't analyzing as much as possible. I wasn't analyzing while I was singing, but I thought, oh God, but because my emotion was there and I made that emotion work, that was what they liked. They didn't care if my note was perfect and pristine. No.
Yeah.
They wanted,
Yeah. I mean, I think we all want to, we all have, I guess, maybe examples of what we might consider ideal conditions.
Yeah.
But I gave up on that a long time ago because it's never going to, and if you rely on that, then you're just going to be disappointed all the time.
Yeah.
So no expectations, no disappointments. You want to believe me, you maintain a level of your personal musicianship, and you expect that of others, of sorts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think of the night, everything, the room, maybe the provided drums, the audience, all of this is part of the improvisational. This is all part of the performance process to me. And so, I think it's really, I look forward to the event aspect of things. That's why I like producing. That's why I like putting together bands and going out, and did a little festival in my backyard this summer called the Avant Yard. It's the second year Avant Yard Jazz Festival, and
cool.
And this year we had Steve Wilson, Sam Newsom played Joel Fromm, Chris Bergson.
Ah.
Yeah, it was Jeff Lederer, Kirk Kanufke.
Where do you live?
I live in Baldwin, in Long Island, just
Oh, okay.
about 45 minutes from the city, 45 minutes to an hour from the city.
Yeah, yeah. That's so cool. Love
But
that.
I'm by far not the best drummer that lives in town because by a long shot, because Roy Haynes lives about 5 minutes that way. So there goes that. But I told
Got
the
it.
drummer the other day that's thinking about moving to this area. I said, you're not going to be the best drummer here. And I think he thought, well, I said, well, because Roy Haynes lives here, not because of me, But I think sometimes I think that we got to go with, and great musicians. I was telling a couple of stories the other day to students. One of which just happened one time backstage at Stanford Jazz Workshop, and we would Terrell Stafford and I and John Watala, the great bassist in the Bay Area, had rehearsed, and we're going to play a concert with the great Kenny Barron. And Kenny Barron, wow, just one of our greatest, right, and great human beings. So I love him, and we're backstage, and I noticed Terrell and I are really close, and I said, man, he seemed a little something. So Terrell, what's up? Because it's Kenny Barron. I said, what? I mean, come on, you played with him live. I've played with him a few times before this event. So what do you mean? He goes, yeah, man, he's so intimidating. I said, intimidating? What? He goes, yeah, how can somebody that's so great be so cool? I mean, sometimes those things make you think, like, okay. And it was really true. It was fun. So I tell that one, like, about how the people, there are people that their intention is to have you help you sound really great, not the other way around.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, kid, let me see what you have, or whatever. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's see what happens here. And when you witness that, I think it's, to me, it's great to play with some folks like that and lift, and know that that's going to be. I was telling the story. I did an interview yesterday because in a week or so we're doing what we call side-by-side concerts at the conservatory at the Roots Jazz and American Music, our jam program at the San Francisco Conservatory of Thelonious Monk, who would have been 100 years old in October of this year, and doing an interview about the artistry and the genius of Thelonious Monk. And I brought up this point that I got to play with. I've had a chance to play with a few people that got to play with. One of which, when I was in college, was the only time that he was a guest at a college as a guest artist at a college, was the great Charlie Rouse at Wichita State University. We brought him to Wichita to play, and we played one tune, and he turned around to me and says, "What's your name, young man?" I said, "Well, Matt Wilson." He goes, "Matt, you have a nice feel. We're going to have fun." And it was a great, those kinds of times make you feel way better than the person that's like, that's inspiring. That's why I love, that's why I love John Clayton. I mean, John Clayton,
he's so beautiful. Yeah.
Master at making you, also I've seen him, like, way he gets people to think about what they're doing too. Like, so did that feel better? Let's try that again, and he has a great way of making them feel like that they came up with it, even though it was this suggestion. He's very masterful at that. And so that's always a delight. Joe LaBarber's great. I mean, Jeff Hamilton, they're all really.
I know. We're so lucky. We're surrounded by beautiful.
Derek Oles, Larry Coons,
Larry,
Katie Thoreau.
Yeah, I know.
Matt Wittick. I mean, the list goes on. And Ben Williamson's living out there, right?
Yes.
Edwin Livingston. He's, Edwin, the bassist.
I do.
He's a Wichita State grad. Go Shockers. Of course, Peter Erskine and who's a dear friend and a hero of modern music to me, and Benny Maupin and Bobby Bradford and Vinny Gallia, and I mean, it just, the list goes on and on. And there's somebody I just looked at that I wanted to do, Josh Nelson and Kevin. Their show's on tonight. Yeah. And Bill Mays is going to be on, so I'm going to tune in.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm going to make while I'm making the mashed potatoes and the chive carrots for dinner and all this and that, and Ted Nash's that whole legacy. But there's just a great crew of folks that are James Newton, still around in the LA area, and it's great. So but spirit is spirit, and that's nothing that, to me, the style, all that, genre. There's dialects of this. Obviously, there's dialects of the music, but I don't really try to separate any of it. I mean, it's not. It's. I enjoy every setting, and I don't put. I'm very, very honest, and I can say I don't put one over the other. It's not like, well, I'd rather. I don't really. It's more like, if it's great, it's the people. This is a human moment oriented activity, right? So the song is probably second in that, but the style is the people. If I could 5 more minutes with just talking with Lee Konitz, or 5 more minutes of talking with Dennis Irwin or Andrew Hill or Charlie Hayden, more than, I mean, as much as we get to play with them again, but just their conversations and their human spirit was so beautiful that, I mean, that to me is, so when I think about the people, that's why I like to assemble bands. I think about the people. I know the music will assemble these spirits that are.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. My first husband told me that. When I would like stress out about who to put together, he'd say it doesn't matter how they play, or what genre kind of they play. It's who they are. Put them together with who they are. And he was right. It was so great. Are you familiar with David Amram?
Sure.
He's a perfect example of this, right?
Yeah.
He plays everything, He was the composer, the resident composer for the New York Philharmonic.
Yep.
Before that, he was, this, French horn player who played with Charlie Parker and people like that. And then now he's like folk artist, and he's an amazing.
Oh yeah, matter of fact, a couple of things. Well, I kind of think of him as kind of one of our modern day Gunther Schulers or Leonard Bernstein sorts. But my dear friend Pete Malverne put a really beautiful post up about David the other day.
Oh.
And I've been using this a lot. I've been using this a lot in my teaching. We're learning all the time. So I just wrote Pete today. I haven't sent it yet, but I had an email about something else, and I wanted to point out to him. He put, I was just with David Amram. He goes, he allowed me to be heard. I felt that he heard me, which is the greatest thing another musician can do. Isn't that great? Like, to be around, whenever you're around the great players, John Schofield, Joe Lovano, Bill Frisell, Greg Osby, the people that I think really appreciate, allow you to be heard. And sometimes the drums, or any instrument can kind of get but when anybody comes up there and just welcomes you in, I mean, that to me is the great, how you can allow people to go places. Dewey was great at that. Dewey Redman I played with for 12 years, from 1994 until he passed on September 2nd of 2006. And so one time we just got done with a concert in Europe, and he said to me, Matthew, thank you for the music. I said, dude, this was so much fun. He said, well, thank you for the music. He goes, people sound their best when they play with me. And I thought, but I realized, it was never, he never had an utterance of ego, ever. But what he was saying is he did. And you talk to people that play with me, wow, he did really allow you to feel great. And so, I want that. I remember seeing an interview on 60 Minutes when I was a kid with Count Basie. I think, who is it that goes on the bus with him? It's not, maybe it's Mike Wallace, actually. Traveled with him. Butch Miles in the band at the time. It's the 70s sometime. And they asked me, what do you want to be known for? You're like Count Basie. You've done this. You've done this. He goes, I want to see. Let me think. So I'm paraphrasing. Something like that Count Basie was a really nice guy.
That figures.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just so.
Yeah.
When we think of these great, and so that's why when I would talk with Lee Konitz about Bill, when Lee passed, Bill and I had talked about this, about he was our connection to us, to a direct link to asking questions about the history, right? So I played last week a week ago tonight with Roberta Brunson, did a CD release thing here in New York. And so it was the band for the record, Cameron Brown, Don Clement, Cameron Brown, Don Clement, Stacey Dillard, and Sheila came and sang a couple things, the great Sheila Jordan. So we went out to dinner afterwards. Sheila and I are like this. We did a tour in Columbia 24 years ago. We went
Wow.
first met her and hung out, and she's a link like that.
Definitely.
I mean, Clifford Brown took her to her daughter. She was pregnant with her daughter Tracy. Clifford Brown took her to the obstetrician for an appointment. You're not going to take the subway. I'll drive you. I mean, she went to Abby Lincoln and Max Lucher's wedding in Charles Mingus's car. She sang at Thelonious Monk's. Max, she talked about Max today, and said, when I saw a post about her, about Max got her the UMass summer workshop thing, and he's just forever grateful. They were really close, So these links like this. So you find out the human. So I remember asking Lee Konitz one time we were in Japan about Kenny Clark. I was just really re-infatuated with Kenny Clark this morning. What was it like? He was great. He was super open. He was into trying things. It was great to hear, right? It's great to hear how people will are or were, and I think now the human moment aspect of this is it's always important, but it's maybe more important than ever to have.
Yeah, Billy Higgins and that crew, they were so much like that, I mean, Billy Higgins created the world stage, and which is still going on, and
big talk about him the other day. I mean, I have a tune on one of my records, Humidity, called "Thank You, Billy Higgins," that I wrote after he died. About when I saw him in the summer of 1984, and I realized this is real. I mean, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I really realized at that point, like, that's what and whomever I heard him with, I heard him with Harold Land, I heard him with Cedar Walton, I heard him with Charles Lloyd, I heard him with Joshua Redman, with Pat Metheny and Charlie Hayden, I heard him with Ornette, he was always served the music, but he was always himself too. So it's amazing. Yeah, he's a huge hero. And talk about somebody who really told stories. I turned a student on the other day of him. I got to see him do this once. I saw him in Boston play at the Willow Jazz Club with James Williams. May he rest in peace. Alan Dawson, may he rest in peace, and Billy Higgins and John Lockwood, and Alan was playing vibes, and Billy Higgins was playing.
Oh,
and at one point, Billy played the guitar and did the Brazilian singing that he would do. So
Billy Higgins,
he did this full Portuguese.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's on an Anthony Cox record called Dark Metals. He does a piece on it. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think he made it up. I mean, he could just make the sounds like, and he would just use certain words, but he could do that kind of comping and do it. Yeah, he was amazing.
Who knew? I did not know that at all.
Yeah.
I know one of his nephews, this really great singer named Billy Red, and but we just never got into talking about that, I guess. But God, that's really interesting. I'm going to have to call him. Yeah,
it's a cool record too. Overall, it's a great record. And then, the other thing is, Buster Williams told me, we're really close. If he was in town and Harold Land was in town, they'd play duet every afternoon.
Wow.
Just like John Carter and Bobby Bradford did. They both taught school. They'd play after school. They'd get together and play trumpet,
cornet, and
clarinet duets every day.
Yeah.
So they had that musical relationship, I love Bobby. I mean, I'm close with Carmen, and there was a nice article, interview with Bobby in this month's Chamber of Music America magazine, and he just does some brilliant things, So I'm trying to do my best to document some sort of playing with him, But this new record that he has is really beautiful. The Jackie Robinson Suite.
Oh, really?
It's really beautiful. Vinnie Gallagher, Tina Raymond. It's great.
The crew, man.
Yeah, the crew.
Tina's
great in LA. Oh yeah,
wow. I love Tina Raymond. I had her and her quartet on this week or last week, whenever.
Oh yeah, I think with Dawn.
Yeah,
and Elsa and the great bassist from Chicago. Yeah,
Mom.
I saw that band live. It was the last performance that I saw at the 55 bar.
Oh.
And the 55 bar closed like a week later. I mean, Elsa had kind of been hinting that it could be a possibility. I didn't really believe it in a way. And then obviously it was for real. But I heard them there, and they were fantastic, and I love the record,
Yeah,
and I
it's
love
really
what they're doing.
beautiful. And
Yeah,
Tina's so she's so present and fluid and she's really a great drummer. And
great,
I
great
really
vocals.
love Dawn. I mean,
Oh,
wow, Dawn's comping is really happening, you know?
she's a
Well, they're all
fantastic.
good, but I mean, they just stood out for me, because I've sung with Tina and Dawn just was like, wow, great
Yeah,
comp.
she was on the gig with Roberta last week, and then I do a lot of different things with Dawn. We have a trio with Chuck Deerdorf. She's done a lot
Oh,
of Honey and Salt gigs with me, the Sandberg music. Also, when Dawn Thompson can't do it, uh, Dawn's done it. And then
oh,
I got a
cool.
new thing that I'm gonna try to record, do coming up with, that I did for this festival in my hometown. I put a band together with her and Tia Fuller and Lederer and Ben Allison. So I'm trying to get a date for that in the spring, and then record it right afterwards. So yeah,
Cool.
I'm been a big believer in Dawn, so she's great.
Joyce had asked a while ago that she was asking who your favorite female musicians were, but so he's mentioned a whole bunch of female musicians here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to play, Anat, Ingrid Jensen. I made a lot of records with Jane Ira Bloom. I love playing with Joanne Brett Keane. I mean, Carla Blade with Charlie, with Liberation. I mean, Katie, Linda O. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think about it, and that I just
Yeah.
adore their spirit. Sarah Caswell, the
Yeah.
violinist, Lakeisha Benjamin, Alexa Tarantino, Camille Thurman. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, it's amazing, and I love the Nicole Glover. I mean, really Roxy Koss. There's a great young trumpeter at the new school named Cal Ferretti that Cal Ferretti, you'll hear about it. There's a young bassist that I known since she was 14, Hannah Marks, and Kalia Vandiver. She's a great trombonist. I mean, there's just a lot of people out there in that are doing, I mean,
A lot of people out there doing it. I know.
yeah,
It's we're really balancing out the shit on the planet, man.
exactly. And Terry Lynn, this new book, this was released this week of tunes of all the composers. I mean, I
Oh
look at that
yeah, yeah.
cover and I know or have played with the majority of the ones that are. I mean, I got to play with Jerry Allen. Jamie Baum is in there, and Angelica Sanchez, and Nadia Nurhouse plays with me in Honey and Salt now after Ron Miles passed. And I mean, yeah, I've always really, I never think about it that way though. I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I'm my mom was a kind of an early Midwest, I would say feminist in a way. I mean, my parents were very
Balanced, right?
equal.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
weren't like, they made decisions together or they included us. I never saw that like, that at all. It was like, matter of fact, if anything, she was more the boss, but in a lot, but she taught, she instilled that in me, and I, that kind of respect overall. And I think it's great to see where Allison and Renee. I mean, Renee is. I mean, Renee Rosnes. I mean, I could go on and on. Renee Rosnes, and I could list all those. This great community of people.
Yeah. Who's that drummer? Allison.
Allison Miller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's really
Sylvia
good.
Cuenca, great drummer. Tina.
Yeah.
There's I'm not can't recall her name, but she's playing in this new project of Christian McBride's really great. She's a really great young drummer that I've known since she was younger too, in the Seattle area. And I can't call her name right now, but I just should be able to reel it off better. But and I had a really, I've got some, I've got a really nice student at the San Francisco, Jayla Hernandez, Bea Shelby. She's from the Bay Area. She's at the new school. She sounds great. So yeah,
Cool.
but there's all kinds of folks.
Hey, do you want to listen to a little of your music?
I guess so. That old Monty Python sketch where the guy's doing like a Bob Dylan-esque kind of thing, and he says, "Hey, there's Joey Barron." He
I
says,
know.
Look. He said, "I've suffered with my music long enough. Now it's your turn." He's like doing like a Bob Dylan thing. There's
Well,
Joey, my man.
I know, Joey baby. I saw him in June. So in June, I was on the East Coast and I sang at the Soapbox in New York and then a home concert in Boston. And then I sang at the Deerhead. And I
Oh wow.
visited Joe and Judy at their house, which was really cool, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great. But
Yeah.
let me see, Matt Wilson. I mean, just you know, whatever. Oh, look, you're very young there.
Yeah. That's a while ago.
um, is this the soapbox?
It is. Yeah. It is. It is.
Is that something or music? Oh, Bill
Yeah.
Mays, whatever.
Yes. Bill Mays. That's Music House. I think they're playing some of that today on Josh and Kevin's show.
Yeah, whichever.
Um,
Uh,
if you
anything?
scroll down, is there something there? Just something kind of weird. I think I would like people to see. Is called Martha the Juicer.
Oh, well, let me type that in. Martha the Juicer.
Yeah.
Interesting name.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting premise. There you go.
Right
Play
here.
that. Yeah. Play that for the people.
Okay.
I'm Matt Wilson.
Hi, Matt. Oh, God. Okay, now you're getting into Joey Sellers weird.
Yeah. Well, I love Joe. One take.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, I don't know what this is, but yeah. So I was very fortunate. A very important person in uh, my my mother was very imaginative, and that would have us do things, and that was. I was sort of given the answer yes. Also, where I grew up, I didn't know. I mean, we just did things. We didn't have the internets and all this stuff. We had to figure it out. But also, as far as music, I was pretty fortunate to get to play a lot early on. I mean, I was playing gigs, starting in 8th grade or so. So I was into the social aspect of the music. Matter of fact, I tell the story that at my high schools, late, junior high, early high schools, the late 70s, budget cuts. For what's going to go are extracurricular music activities, theater, stuff like that. So jazz band got cut. So it was fine because we did it on our own, and then it forced me, or force may be a strong word, but it encouraged me to push me out into the community. So I was starting to play with all these older musicians and learning from them. My middle brother passed away at 17, but the theater thing was cut at that point, and he became one of the preeminent scenic designer, special effects theater people in the Midwest. It was at St. Louis Opera, St. Louis Rep, taught at Webster. His wife is a scenic designer and painter. So, I mean, so sometimes, if I would have been in jazz band, I might not have, I didn't know. So then Mark, my brother, that same brother, brought me home this record. It's on ABC Impulse called The Drums. It's a 3-record set. They did one for the saxophone. They did one for the bass. They might have done one for the piano. Michael Cascuna, Ed Michelle put these together from the Impulse vault. So they had everything on there from Baby Dodds to, at this point, Barry Allschul with Chick, Paul Motion with Keith Jarrett. But they had Danny Richmond, Billy Joe, Chico Hamilton. There's a wide array, Sonny Murray with Albert Eiler, Beaver Harris with Archie Shepp. So I didn't, I heard this and I listened to all these records, and I didn't know that I was supposed to subscribe to a 5-year period. I just thought, oh, this is what jazz drummers do. This is what this is. So I liked the recording of Ghost, and I liked the recording of Elvin playing Summertime with Richard Davis. I liked it all, and I thought, oh, this is cool. So maybe that ignorance is I still try to remain pretty ignorant in ways that not to, like, okay, it's cool. It's what it is. Matter of fact, a few weeks earlier in the summer, I was playing a concert at the Litchfield Jazz Festival. We played with Caroline Davis, Russ Johnson, Sam, bassist, and a young pianist, and Andrew Hadro, and we played a piece of Jerry Allen's. And it got to this section, where we played collectively open. It's kind of not nobody really soloing, but kind of, just it was over this kind of insistent vamp vibe. So I played the music with the brush, and then I held it up, played it, and then I just took the cymbal off that was on the left and just started dropping it on the drums. So felt that's what I needed to do, so I did that. It was videoed, they videoed the concert, and they had like a young person there working that summer that knows this world of whatever, and this thing went viral on TikTok in a couple of days, and some people were just scathing. This is not this. What is this? Plus, I was wearing a jacket, so they're like, well, who's the old guy? What's wrong with and I realized, and then Jazz Memes redid it a few weeks ago with the same thing. Now, whatever that means, but I'm just saying that to me, this means all of it. So it's not. I do that, and I love playing with great vocals. I love playing Bye Bye Blackbird, or I love playing, The Very Thought of You, or I love American Songbook tunes. I love, so again, this whole choice of having to be one thing or the other. And in New York, I was lucky when I moved to New York 30 years ago, is when those barriers started to sort of be less. It's not like, okay, this zone and this zone. It was the scenes really started to open up and be, so like through people like Ted Nash, as I became very close with Wynton, and then through other people I might be doing, I would Dresser and Myra, and then, and then introduce those people to those folks. And I introduced Wynton to Bill Frisell at a benefit concert one night, and they have gone on and done things together, right? So I think it's great that it's the people. It's not people get into this whole worried about all that. So that's something. And so, but I went to Wichita State University for my undergrad. Oh, I only have an undergrad degree, but I met this percussionist that is a genius. He's maybe arguably the most creative person on the planet. You talk to anybody that knows him, talk to Jeff Hamilton, talk to Peter Erskine, talk to all these cats. They know him, they know. And he refused to take no for an answer about anything about this. So we did a piece for a percussion ensemble.
And what is his name?
J.C. Combs.
Yeah. J.C. Combs. Okay.
Yeah, COMBS, Dr. J.C.
Yeah.
Combs. And I just saw him in Wichita when we were there. He's just turned 82, and I talk to him all the time. And he arguably is, and total imagination and doing things different ways. And also, people came to the concert, so he knew how to get people there and market them and have them feel good about getting there, being there too. So I learned a lot from him about that, and believing in what you're doing, and then also believing that people do want to hear it. Like Albert Eiler said in the movie My Name is Albert Eiler, at one point he says, people may not like my music now, but they will. So there you go. You have these people that have that self-assurance, and you got to believe, like I was,
Yeah.
studying your website. You have those great quotes about believing and stuff. You got to believe in what you're doing, and
Yeah.
no matter what it is. And so if you really, whatever it is, I mean, I love really swinging music too. I just want to experience something, especially with the people. So I think that's fun.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff like that, I like too. So.
I have a question. I'm going to take one of Taylor's earlier questions.
Sure.
In your own development, what was one thing you always wanted to ask your idols that always had a different answer? I like that question. That's an interesting question. I'm trying to think of that with myself too. For me, like I have created so many workshops over the years, up until like the pandemic, or maybe a little before. For about 16 years, I had workshops in my home, like at least 8 a month. So every weekend, every day, every weekend,
Yeah.
and I not only me, I would have visiting artists, give workshops. It was a great period, and the thing that I saw over and over again was, like, let's say I had a clinician there. Both of us would recognize the same issue with the student, but we would talk about it, the solving it differently, because you're different people. So I guess that's kind of a question along those lines. I don't know if you have an answer to that question. You know.
Yeah, I I think what I always tell folks is about that world is teach what you know. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's something that I don't know, I'm not going to say, well, let me go home and look at that pattern in somebody's book or something, and I'll work on it and pretend like I know. I've learned that people can smell, so you just
BS.
you send them to the people that do know, and now it's pretty easy to do that, right? If I had to ask idols, I've been fortunate to get great advice, even if just tidbits all along the way. I've compiled these, I keep them
Yeah.
in my brain, or I've written them down too. And like one time, we were getting ready to do, it was Lee Conan's 75th birthday. We were doing we ended up doing this week in New York with, we did some concerts upstate or in Boston and New York prior, and then we did a week in New York at with this band, with this pretty happening band, Gary Peacock, Frizzell, and Lee and I. It was a controversial when Elvis Costello was supposed to come and sing with us. I don't know. It was obviously I ended up working with Elvis, handful of times since that time. So it's great. I love it. But we were getting ready to play we were playing trio with Dennis Orr. We were getting ready to play the Iron Horse in Northampton, Massachusetts, from the dressing room. And Lee goes, "You know what I want to do in my remaining years?" And this was 75, so he was 92. So it was a while ago. He goes, "I want to keep doing what I'm doing and just do it better." It wasn't some big project of grandeur or whatever. And so I think there's something very valid about that. And I think there's something incredibly valid about people that maintain that sense of joy with everything. That's why I like some often older musicians are more youthful than some younger musicians as far as just their attitudes about things. Buster Williams, Denny's Island, that trio, for example, or Rufus Reed, or or these folks, they just, their sense of, they know why they want to do it all the time. That feeling. We want to still. Roy Haynes. I mean, again, it's right over there. But I mean, if he was playing tonight, awesome. Someplace. But I think, yeah, I don't think that. I think a lot of times is you. I always tell everybody your story is very important. Everybody's story is different, right? And some people are from regions. Some people come from obviously different ethnic backgrounds. So as long as the respect is there, to me, and then in that, getting back to what we heard earlier, what I talked about earlier, that Pete Malin-Burney said about, he allowed me to be heard, or I felt he heard, I felt I was heard.
Yeah.
When you leave, that's one of the that's that level of when you felt like, okay, you don't mean I didn't play, maybe not play great, or it's not that, oh, I was burning, but when you really, the bottom line is when you leave, you're driving home, you go, wow, that person really allowed me to be heard. Just even that contact, that human moment, that human, like, okay, allow me to be that. I think, and I've been very fortunate to have people allow me to do that, and then that's why I try to pay that aspect of it forward as much as possible, because I was given those kinds of gifts, continue to be given those kinds of gifts. Like I played with Benny Wallace Sunday night. I haven't played with it. I've never played with them. It was a great band. It was.
I'm sorry. Who?
Benny Wallace, the great tennis player, and I've been fan of his for years. And he heard me once with Dewey, and we had a conversation. Finally came around to get to play, and Mark Elias played bass, and Terrell, and Gary Versace. It was so great, And so the feeling after it just. We do what we do, and it was beautiful, and it was fun. We played some nice songs and felt great, and it was a great spirit on the bandstand, and everybody was allowed to be heard, and felt to be, and felt, that it was that kind of.
Well, that is, I mean, when you do it over and over again, and you feel that, and then you get older, it's kind of it kind of all comes together like that. It's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I really like this. This is what I like, and this is how you get here. And it's such a great tool in life. I wrote a little philosophy book finally after 15 years of teaching and gathering my viewpoints, which were. It just intrigued me always in teaching that the same lesson that I was trying to teach, the idea was exactly the same as what was happening in your life. It was, and in every section of your life, you can really get into that. And so it's this, we're so lucky to do what we do, to go through life and grow. But that's the thing that I really love, turning people on to that idea of this feeling is it. This is it. It's not. Yeah. It's not. Oh, I've got to get that concert. Yeah, that's cool. You want to get that concert and go after it, but that's not what it's about. It's about this moment. It's about the creation. It's about camaraderie. And this connection to, I say God, the connection to whatever you want to call it, in that aesthetic space. That's what it's about, man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, John Clayton, getting back to John, he refers to, family. He always says that when he comes into the Central Jazz Workshop, says, hello, family. I love that. And we really are. And I mean, when my wife died in 2014, the community, I mean, it still when I think about it, it's still moving, call from, Winton and Flowers from Dazzling Center and the Vanguard and from Buster Williams and Bob Stewart and Dave Douglas and all kinds of people come to the service, and I mean, all that kind of thing. And you find out that it's deeper than the ride cymbal. I mean, the ride cymbal is your introduction to that, but you're being welcomed into this social community that's really, really deep and very, very caring. And, you see that now with like the support of people that are maybe have been going through some things, and now with GoFundMe's and stuff like that, you see how easy it is to see this, to see that compassion and empathy and all that in action. Before, it was maybe a little less overt, but now we can actually really, and it's really gratifying to see. And so, but I like, just trying to, I have a philosophy is that the answer is yes if it's legal. I mean, try it. I mean, what do we have to adhere to everything that's been, and if you think about, well, this is how it was done. They always say that's one of the things that say, well, it's how we've always done it. Well, that's kind of maybe one of the not give greatest philosophies on life. Well, sometimes sometimes that's a good thing too. Traditions are great, right? I like traditions, holiday traditions. We do this. I like that. We like having those things in place. And then, but some of these traditions last couple of years got knocked around. Like some people, family couldn't visit. We had to come up with new things, or friends that used to come and all that. So we came up with new things to do. And I like that. I like that aspect of it too. I'm gonna let the dog out. There's a lot of glamorous things I do here in the jazz life. But go ahead, Winter. But I think, I just the people, what I mean? It really is people, and just my kids to be around these kinds of people. They know the difference. They know, I remember one day we were driving. The kids were pretty small. I mean, the boys were pretty young, maybe middle school or something like that. My son's good. Well, one of the days, Audrey sang "We See" in the car. The Thelonious Monk tune. Thought, okay, doing something all right. They were asking about Paul Motion, and then one of my sons says, "Dude, is John Schofield considered a jazz legend?" I would consider him a jazz legend. He said, I was like, I said, that's great. Or they met Ornette Coleman. My kids all met Ornette Coleman. My daughter met Dave Brubeck when I interviewed him at the Chill Jazz Festival. Roy Haynes talked about this. I did an interview. You can see it on YouTube. I interviewed him at the Chill Jazz Festival as artist and president. And it was a thrill. I mean, I used to see him a lot more around here, in the neighborhood or whatever, grocery store, etc.
Yeah.
But one of the things somebody asked him about, and this is interesting. You like this guy. He said, well, "What do you look for in your players?" He goes, "People that let me in." He says,
"Wow."
He said, "Lester Young let me in." He said, "Charlie Parker let me in." He said, "John Coltrane." I'm gonna shut this door.
That's cool.
John Coltrane let me in. He goes, "Pat Metheny lets me in." Chick Corea was still alive at that point. He says, "Chick lets me in." He says, "Some people don't let me in." How do you not let him in? I guess maybe it's fear or over this, we want to be respectful of these people, but when you're there, it's equal. You're there for a reason, and so, it's cool. I mean, but he's that day too, he was fantastic. And we asked him, I had specific things, certain recordings, whatever, and then at one point it was starting to rain. We were in a tent. He goes, "Let's just check out the sound. Let's just check out these rhythms of the rain." And it was pretty cool. And one day I also did one with Maestro Jimmy Heath with Joe Lovano, and so that was an easy one. I mean, as you just basically go, "Ladies and gentlemen," and then you just sit there because they had it, And Mr. Brubeck was fantastic, and I asked him some cool questions, and I saw him the next day at the Newport Festival, and he yelled at me from like 100, like 50 yards away, "Man, there's Matt." He was saying to somebody, "This guy interviewed me." I said, "This guy is," it was really fun, and we got into, and it was deep, to get him into talking about music and in other ways, and he was a real gem, So very, very nice guy, and it's funny how the characters, when my dad watched the Ken Burns special, he was like, I hadn't played with him at this point. He goes, "Boy, I sure would like to have you. It'd be great if someday you could play with this Charlie Hayden guy. I really liked his interview with, or I like this guy Charlie Hayden. I told Charlie that. He's like, "Yeah, man," and my daughter and Charlie were they always had a little thing. My daughter played bass in high school. She still plays a little bit. She's an actress, musical theater actress. So, but we went to see the film Ramblin' Boy. It was right after my wife was diagnosed. This was maybe fall of 10. She had leukemia. So, but my son Ethan and my daughter and I went to the Walter Reed Theater at Juilliard to see the screening of Ramblin' Boy. Sat with Pat Metheny, and it was great. And his family, Jack Dees and that, it was fun. And so Audrey counted how many times Charlie said man in the film. Yeah, man. So we went up to say afterwards, and he goes, and Charlie goes, Audrey, oh, great to see you, man. And she looks at me, she goes, 39. She's pretty clever.
That's very funny.
So, those kinds of, I mean, I think of Charlie every day. I think of Dewey every day. I think of Lee Konitz every day. I think of Dennis Irwin every day. I mean, I think of these people that, I think of Frank Kimbrough, and who we just lost in December of 20, and Ron Miles we just lost in March. These guys, they were deep musical comrades of mine.
Yeah.
And so that's rough. I mean, I lost these two, really great compatible spirits of this. So we know that our job is to do. So I was on the phone with Martin this morning. I'm like scheming up some new projects, and Jeff Lederer is one of those people that I could, he's one of my, you got to find your tribe of people that believe in what you do. And I am lucky to have this huge community of people. I'll go, let's try this, let's do it. And they may look at me crazy, but we end up doing them. And so, that's why Christmas Trio came around. That's why Quartet with Strings came around. That's why we do this and that. Those things come around because somebody comes up with the idea, and then that you have the people around you that will help support that message. And bands are really what this music is all about to me. I mean, John Coltrane had great, speaking of Maestro's birthday today, he had a great band, right? Yeah. I mean, and Ornette Coleman had great bands, and Duke Ellington had great bands, and Miles Davis had great bands, and Mary Lou Williams had great bands, and Carla Bley had great band, has great bands. So, we got to think about how they were able to gather these spirits that helped them with their messages. And so, if you're a part of that, or if you're an instigator of that, it's great all the way around. So it's been nice to have it be both, to be around these people, play with them, and then also have them give you the permission, like, oh yeah, do your thing. Dewey was always very supportive of
It's nice to hear you talk, Matt, because I really get a sense of what you're about and why you continue and why you do what you do, and it's definitely a forward motion, and I feel like you want to connect with people, and and that's your main goal, and you're doing it.
Yeah, again, it has nothing to do with style thing, whatever. To me, the great people connected. It's really great to study the folks, the Cannonball.
Yeah.
I mean, Cannonball did a lot of music in his short period.
He did.
Wow. When and some other eras of certain people that we, my students at the conservatory, they're doing a chapter on Servan this time, and at this point, and they were doing like these. We have to do presentations. It's really great, and a couple of them did different things. Like a great Michael Potter, a great young pianist from Denver, did a nice presentation on how Jimmy Jones comped for Sarah. We had examples, written out things, and some people did some stuff on Roy Haynes. But we're playing some different records of Mr. Haynes's that we may not know, like with the hip ensemble stuff, sort of fusion-esque, or jazz rock records from the early 70s, and they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, Elvin Jones on the Mountain, with Gene Perla and Jan Hammer. He's ripped. It's great. So they welcome, Elvin with Oregon. All these different things that people did.
Wait, I never heard Elvin with Oregon.
Yeah, that's a record. That's a great record.
Wow.
Yeah.
I must check that out.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are curious about spirits. I think you that's why I'm intrigued by, I've been very fortunate to apprentice. I've been very fortunate to apprentice with really more older musicians than the people in between, people like Myra and Mark Dresser, and not that they're that much older than me, but Ray Anderson, and Mark Dresser will turn 70 next Monday. My birthday's next Tuesday. His is Monday.
Oh.
And those folks, and then my peers, and then now younger people. So it's great to go play a gig, and I'm the old guy. It's fun. I like it. tell the same stories everybody else has heard, and they haven't heard them. So, and I can give them hassle, but I enjoy it very much, and I think that's what they're part of the family, and so I've known somebody, Joel Ross, I've known since he's super young, James Francis, I've known since he was 14 years old. These folks that are out there, Sasha Berliner, she's great. I've known her, she first started the New School. People mentioned earlier, Hannah Marks and Kalia Vandiver and all these folks. I've known them since high school. Some of them since high school, and now they're out, making records and hopefully calling me for gigs every once in a while.
Okay, so there's a few questions here. So,
sure.
Just
let's do them.
God, you've done so many gigs. I don't even know if there's an answer to this. What was the funniest gig you ever played?
Funniest. I can tell you a funny thing that happened at a gig. I mean, there's been a lot of that, but a funny gig. Well, one time we were playing at what used to be Augie's. Now it's Smoke.
Okay.
June night.
Smoke.
Joel Fromm, David Berkman, Doug Weiss playing bass, playing Monk Stream a little bit the best. But we noticed right before the set that there was a woman sitting at the front table in the window, the way it was set up back then, with a fur coat on. It was pretty warm in June, so this is pretty unusual. So we're playing Monk Stream, and she comes up and she just opened the coat and walked out. Now she had she wasn't totally new. She had some lingerie on, but it was still pretty riveting and shocking. And she did it so gracefully and just walked out. Well, we started laughing. I couldn't keep playing. I had to stop. I was like Berkman. I was falling out, and Joel got mad and he was, "What's up? What's wrong with you guys? What's going on?" And he said, "Damn," he goes, I've been playing up here 2 nights a week for the last 5 years, and I have my eyes shut, and I missed it." So he plays with his eyes open now. So that was pretty funny. I mean,
that's very funny,
and just different, always really strange situations. But sometimes those are pretty cool. You get there, and you're like, wow. You play on the, in the back of a truck. One time we played this thing with Dina DeRose. Somebody else who I haven't mentioned nearly enough today, but Dina DeRose. I've been playing with her for a long, long time. Talk about a great, great artist.
Yeah,
we have such a great relationship. I've played on.
She's a great person.
Oh, I just love her. I love her. I mean, she embodies what this is all about to me.
Yeah.
Go out, play great spirit, imagination, everything.
Yeah.
And a great teacher, great. And we played this thing called the Nam Jam. It was for the Vietnam vets. It was up in Dutchess County Fairgrounds. And we get there, and they expected, I think they expected a lot of people, a lot of food vendors, and it was like a serious Spinal Tap moment. There were about 7 people there, and we were cool. We set up, and we just invited people on the flatbed truck with us. Basically, just sit right with us on the bandstand, because there's no sense us playing after them. So that was pretty funny. We had a lot of laugh. We still laugh about that one, And Dewey, man, we played some, funny gigs. You never know where you get placed. One time in Bologna, Italy, we played this, what was like ended up being like a teen center. It was great. And we got there, like signs, we drove down this road, and the headlights hit this poster that said Dewey Redman tonight. We're like, wow, this is bizarre. And again, it was one of the greatest things ever. It was like it was like the public works warehouse basically turned over these kids for arts center. And my God. They put on these concerts, and it was great. And it was like a rock concert. They were like doing stuff like
wow.
Dewey was Nirvana or something like that. It was fantastic. So you never know. You never know where you get to some place, and I love. That's why I've always tried to play remote areas of the states and stuff like that too, because
the remote stuff is really cool, like great. That. Yeah,
great. We played a fish cannery one time in Sitka, Alaska. No, not Sitka. In some island outside of Juneau. We flew there. Dennis Irwin, Terrell, Versace, and I, and we played a concert for these people in this community, and it was really great. It was. We all talk about it still. It was fantastic. Matter of fact, we were leaving this, Cathy, and the guy had the band. We did a workshop at the high school. Well, school. The school was kindergarten through high school. I mean, that's the school. It's
Wow.
not high school, junior
Yeah,
high.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
all, so all the kids were there. And so the band director said, well, you got to drive yourself. We had a little regional, like a little small airport. You got to drive yourself there. I have a 3 on the tree. Can you drive it? I grew up learning to drive with a 3 on the tree. So yeah, I'll drive. So we have this stuff in the tree. We're at this little hotel. We're getting
yeah.
Terrell and Versace are in the back. Dennis is in front with me, and Dennis's stepson was with us. He would come for the trip, so he's there. And Terrell's in the back. But it was a great feeling in this place. Well, we saw this guy drive by in a truck, and he turns around. And you get a little nervous. You're thinking, okay, and he turns up and he stops and he rolls down the window. He goes, fellas, last night was the greatest thing that's happened in this town in 15 years.
Wow.
And it was great. And I said something about at the concert about it would be really great to see a bear. So we're driving back on this road and they stop and we get out of the car and this guy goes, hey, Wilson, your wish has been granted. So, maybe we didn't get too close to it, but we were 50 yards. It was a yearling, grizzly, came down the mountain. And so finally the sheriff just shot a gun off a couple of times and went back up the hill. So that was pretty fun, Yeah.
Oh, great memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, the story, and that's the great thing. You never know when you go, the story that could come out of a gig,
Yeah.
that's why you go and take them. You're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is great. Meet some people, I met, actors and, I was playing with Jane Eyre Bloom one night and Joe Grafassi, her husband, the actor, came up to me and said, somebody really wants to meet you. It was at Tonic here in New York. James Quartet with Mark Elias, and maybe I can't recall who was playing the piano that night, but this person really wants me. So I take my cymbals and I have them in the bag. It was January. I remember it was warm, unseasonably warm. So I walk up, the person turns around, she puts out her hand. It's Meryl Streep. We just sat there and hung out for a while. It was great. And then I was leaving. I was getting in my car, van across the street, and she was getting in a van and she waved goodbye. And I was doing a workshop one time at the Percussive Arts Society convention in Indianapolis, and I got bumped up to business class. So I was waiting to fly home. This was November of 10. And my wife was in the hospital, and I went out to this workshop. I was flying right back home, and I see her get on, and she sits right in front of me. So I'm like, I text my wife. I said, should I say something? She said, yeah, say something. Just say, So I said, Ms. Streep, I apologize. I don't mean to bother you. I know it's early, but I said, we met a year or so ago. I was playing with Jane Eyre Bloom, and she turns around and she goes, you're the drummer. Mark Elias and I always argued. Well, no, she was, she liked me, whatever. So it was great. I came home and I remember waking my wife when that happened. I said, I just met the greatest, living actress. And she said, Meryl Streep. And then Amy Schumer came to a Christmas trio gig at the Jazz St. Louis when we were playing there.
Yeah.
After hours, they did their. That was bizarre. So my daughter thought that was the greatest thing. I mean, I played the White House, that was nothing to her compared to, getting to meet, Amy Schumer, so, and Jack Black, because married to Charlie Hayden's daughter. So I met Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Yeah.
a few presidents because of this. It's nice to get to meet some folks. Done a few things.
Yeah, I go way back with them. Yeah.
Yeah, kiss the first lady Obama on the cheek, and I remember standing right next to Biden at that point. He's vice president. It was kind of intimidating, then afterwards.
Yeah, just think of what they go through, right?
Yeah, exactly, all the time.
Yeah. When I was first in LA, I was like 21, I guess, and the first kind of steady gig that I had was at a place called the Money Tree in Toluca Lake. That at that time, if you were a singer, you had 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
Right. Those were the days. And Clint Eastwood used to hang out there all the time. And of course, he was Mr. Jazz. And then I worked at Dante's as a waitress, and he was always there.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice at that time. It was, You wouldn't get that in Boston. That's where I'm from, you know.
Yeah. And then the Toluca Lake. That's where Bill Henderson lived, the great Bill Henderson,
Yeah.
because he used to do that. Say that I'm from Toluca Lake. I love Bill. Man, what a great guy! What a great
Yeah.
voice. He guested once with arts and crafts. I mean, I did these gigs with him with Dina. When Eric
Oh,
Comstock in New York. We did
yeah.
right around 9/11, actually, when my sons were born, April 9/11. So it was great, April of 11. And so 9/11 happened, and we were at the Algonquin room. We are done a week, and then it was like music of the movie. So it's two pianos, and then Bill,
Oh,
Eric, and Dina, and Bill, and Chris Berger. But it was great. Just Roy Haynes came to that, heard that, and Tootie Heath, and
Bill was, and you know what? Bill even sounded better towards the end of his life. He sounded so good. You were like, how is this even possible? Because he was older, quite a bit older.
Yeah.
When he
I remember getting to a hotel room once in Sweden. I was on the road with Dewey and had like just enough time for a showbiz nap. So some old bed. I had a TV on. It's like watching some old, I don't know what show it would have been. Might have been what's the one with Peter Falk?
Oh yeah,
that Petra Hayden's so into.
The
Columbo, I think, or some sort of show like that, some sort of. And I look up and there's this guy in this hospital bed with his head wrapped around him, and it's Bill. He's, he did all these character acting bits too. So I called him. I said, "Hey," I couldn't see. I said, "Bill, I just saw you on TV over here." But, well, that's great. I loved his voice, And he brought Horace once to the Jazz Bakery, Horace Silver, when I was playing there with Denny and Buster, and they came to sound check, and then we hung out. That was just so great,
He was a real sweetheart.
Bill Henderson was just, and those records. So I turned a lot of singers onto those records, those VJ records he made with Oscar Peterson and stuff like that. I love.
That's
Bill
interesting because here he had a piano duo thing too with Joyce Collins and Dave Mackay.
Yeah,
and that was a group for quite a while. They had that, and then Dave would sing a little, and I think Joyce sang a little too. Just he was of course the main singer. Bill.
But Bill Mays from did a lot of stuff in LA and broadband. I mean, there's just so many heavy duty. I've always liked to be. I'm always curious about like that Dante's thing. I would have loved. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about that place. From Jeff and from Hamilton and from Ted Nash, and
it was cool.
And then Jeff Lederer grew up in Los Angeles, so he grew up, and so he they had a group with him, Larry Kuntz, and Scott Colley, and Jerry Gibbs.
Yeah. Scott Colley in those days, he was actually on my first record. He probably doesn't even remember because it was so long ago. But and the Dante's days, I was at the end of the good part of Dante's, and then it kind of died. But the vibe, the music, the hang, it was all really, it was nice. It was good. I'm really glad I spent time in that.
So many great, other players that I would love to have seen.
Nick Ceroli.
I was just thinking of him. I was thinking of Sherman Ferguson.
Frank Severino.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Humphrey.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great Carmen McRae record that John plays on.
Yeah.
In Clayton with Jack McDuff and the guitarist and Paul. I've talked to John a lot about that. Paul Humphrey is great, man. We used to see, I grew up seeing him on the Lawrence Welk show, and then he plays on Black Cow, on the Steely Dan record. Like, this guy is great. He's such a swinging cat. And then of course Shelley, I would have loved to have, I've met Flip.
I didn't do that. Yeah, Flip, and she's still around. She's like 101.
Yeah, and
101.
And Lawrence Marable. Oh
yeah, Lawrence
Marable. Man. Oh man, I love that guy. Hi man, how you doing? I loved him, and yeah, he's special. I'm probably leaving off a bunch of other folks, but keep track of everybody. You keep track of you Stan Levy. Well, the first time I was ever in LA, I was with this band called the Either Orchestra from Boston, because I lived in Boston from '87 to
Either Orchestra. Really?
Yeah, I did the Either Orchestra. Yeah. And,
cool.
Yeah. And,
wow, that's cool.
I'm on 2 or 3 of the records, and I did it from '87 until '92. So The first time I was ever in LA, we were staying at this place called it was over by Universal theme park. Can't remember
Oh, yeah.
what was the hotel was called? It was right there on
Well, it
the
was
street.
there was the Hilton, and there was
No, this wasn't the Hilton.
oh well,
This
maybe it was
no,
Beverly Garland's Howard Johnson's.
no. I think that's pretty highbrow compared to
Oh,
this. So we were saying that it was either or. It was like 11 people. We shared rooms. It was the whole thing. But
Yeah.
I remember looking in the phone book, Yellow Pages, and I called Stan Levy. I called him. I said, Stan Levy Photography. So I called him and I said, Mr. Levy, how are you doing today, sir? He goes, good. He goes, what can I help you with? I said, well, I'd like to talk to you. He goes, well, yeah, if wedding or photo thing or something. No, I want to talk to you about the jazz and drums. Goes, really? So we started talking, man, he was great. He said, you think Milton Hinton thinks he has some pictures? I've got some pictures. He was great. He told me some great stories. I'll never forget it. I called him. I said, I'm gonna, called him. It was whatever this hotel was is right not too far from the baked potato. So
I think I know it. I mean, I don't even know if it has a name. It was like a hotel motel, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
In my youth, I actually explored that in my wild youth. Well, the Union, right across from the Union, the old Union, there was Stein on Vine, and that was a huge hang, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
So that a lot of people hung out there. They had like a back apartment. Whew, that was like a real hang.
Yeah, those are the hang days. This is great. But I've always enjoyed. So I was never afraid to call those people up and ask them things. I mean, Dewey gave me his number. Dewey heard me, gave me his number, and he said keep in touch. So I did. I called him every month for a year and a half. Finally needed somebody. I really wanted to play with him.
Matt.
I really wanted to play with him, and then he's the one who told me to call Charlie because what Charlie had and I had a lot in common. We're both from the Midwest. We kind of the same things. And then he had a son first, Josh, and then the girls, the triplets. Rachel, Petra, and Tanya. Yeah. And I had a girl first, and then the three boys. Uh-huh. So we always, so I remember calling Charlie in January of 2001 and talking to him about it. So.
Well, and I was just talking about Charlie the other day because he was known for he was on tour and almost the first thing he did was get on the phone and connect with people.
Yeah. Yeah. He loved calling. He loved the phone. Right around the corner before the kitchen was done, there was a place we had the wall, a phone on the wall phone in there. I remember the day, many conversations in there, walking around and talking about things and playing me mixes from the Liberation record or whatever, or telling me a joke and hey man, I love that. I'm talking to Charlie Hayes on the phone,
he's calling me man.
Yeah, hey man, great. And so that's be around those folks, and then to still, I met Jeff Hamilton. It'll be next April. It'll be 39 years ago. I met Jeff at Wichita State.
Wow. And
so I kept in touch with him too. It was the days before there was an email or anything. You had to call. And the first time I ever played LA as a leader, it was a place that that Rocco had out in was it Vibrato? No, not.
Well, it was Vibrato, and it was called Rocco's.
Rocco's, that was it.
And then Herb bought it and changed the whole thing, but it was Rocco's, and that was a very hip place.
That's a hip place. So we set up. It was the quartet with. At that point, it was Andrew D'Angelo, Jeff Lutter, and Yosuke. Anyway, so we set up, and we didn't really we thought the place. So we went to a convenience store, bought a bunch of balloons and blew them up, just decorated the stage. California, LA. So we get back, and there's Jeff sitting right at the table right there, and he was there. It was made me feel like $1 million. And then the next night, he was back, and a bunch of students came, and so I met a lot of those, Kevin Canner, all those people back then. So it was great. So he's been very, very, very supportive over the years, and he's been a big influence, and I kind of refer to him as one of the jazz big brothers to me. He's cool. And then John has always been great and continues to be big. I just love that guy. So great.
Well, Matt, it's been 2 hours.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being on and
Oh,
giving me your time. And, it's really,
I love it. I love you. Have great. You stir it up in cool ways. We're very kindred spirits. I can tell. So
yeah, man.
I
Thank you.
love your records, and you're on Origin. I've checked them out, and I love
Oh,
everything that
cool.
you've done with those, and all
Thanks.
the worlds that you were not afraid to explore.
Thanks.
So yeah,
Thank
that's
you
what
very
we got to
much.
do. The answer is yes, if it's legal.
I'm going to
And
remember that. Anything that we should be looking out for, like immediately?
uh, a safe October, safe autumnal season. No, I've got some things brewing. I just did a little project in my hometown area where I filmed. I recorded at the Wilson family farmhouse. So I recorded in the kitchen there that was built in
Oh,
1850. The main part of the house. A couple restaurants there, Made Right Place, this, and I did. Those are all duo with Jeff Letter, excuse me, and we filmed them all. So I'm making a film, like a 30-minute
ooh,
film of it, and then the soundtrack of that. And then I'm making,
that's
I've
cool.
got these other, recording projects, about to do these coming up with. I don't really want to disclose what they are, but they'll be coming out. There's some gigs with the quartet coming up, and then I do a tour with the quartet in the Midwest in the fall. I'm going out with Hank Roberts, the cellist, in the spring. I'm in, like I said, I'm in San Francisco every month, so I've been doing some playing around there and trying to get down to LA. I just did a really nice gig last year with Katie Throw at SF Jazz Center, so I'm trying to get down to LA and do some stuff with her. I want to do a gig with her and Matt Whittick, both two drums and stuff. Larry Goldings, and I'm trying to get together to do a duet thing down there forever. So hopefully that could come.
That would be awesome.
I love playing with Larry. I mean, he's one of the most imaginative people
He's
on
a
the planet.
genius.
Yeah, he's on the first couple Arts and Crafts records, and I'm on a record of his called Quartet. It's a very, very, very nice record. Was very proud to be part of that. So
Wow,
yeah,
cool.
so I'm just I'm now I guess I've got things that making records is different than in the old days. I'm just interested in documenting as much as I can. So I'm just going to try to do it and do mess with the system as much as I can.
Okay.
All right.
Here's to that. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right. Send love to everybody out there, and send love to you, Cathy, and hope you feel better. Your cough is already better. See, just us talking.
I know.
I cured you. No.
Ah!
All right. Take care. Have a great weekend. All right.
Thank you.
Bless you
Bye.
all. Thank you.
Bye, you guys.